and I sweat. Until I come with me yet. I got to keep pressing, got to keep pressing on. You know I never forget.
Here we go. Grace to you, family. We'd like to welcome you guys to Let's Grow Together. My name is Corey.
And I'm Sean. And
we have a special guest with us tonight. We got Mr. Richard Helen, author of If You Lead, People Will Follow. So I wanted to bring him on tonight. I've been watching you online. I've seen some of your TikToks. You just really been blessing me. You really been blessing me. And I wanted you to come on this evening to really just share with our community. I love your wisdom. I mean, where are you getting all this wisdom and insight from? Does it just come with age? Or are you reading books? Where are you getting this from?
I think it's a plethora of different things, man. Some of this stuff is just a gift from God, you know,
right.
And some of it's through reading, some of it's through experiences, and a lot of it's through failure.
Right.
And so just a combination of things that you put together, man, and that you just try to share with people with the intent that'll add some degree of value so they don't have to make the same mistakes that I made. So, yeah, but it comes from a lot of different places.
Wow. Let me ask you this question. It's my first question. Now, as we scroll through social media, we see podcast after podcast of men and women, predominantly from our community, going back and forth. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Corey. I think we hurt each other.
You think we hurt each other?
We hurt each other.
Okay.
And so I'm on TikTok, as you know.
Okay.
And there's a lot of dialogue with women bashing men, saying men ain't doing this. And then the men hear that. And then the men bash the women. And so I don't think it accomplishes anything because it's not coming from a place of love. And so anytime something doesn't come from a place of love, it's not received well. So I think it hurts our community when we bash each other. And matter of fact, if you think about it, we're really the only community that does that.
Wow.
You know, you don't see the Hispanic community doing that. You don't see the Asian community doing that. You don't see the Asian community putting their men down. You don't see the Asian community, the men in the Asian community putting their women down. It's just a completely different culture.
Right.
And so it hurts us when we see that. And I hate that. Okay, babe. But it's, it hurts and destroys our culture. Now, if we can't say anything's going to uplift each other, then we probably shouldn't say anything at all. So if I'm going to say something to my queen, it's really to uplift. If I got something to say to my king, it's really to uplift, but it's never, ever meant to put anybody down because we shouldn't do that.
Right. And you know, and most of the time when you see these shows, you don't see married couples.
Mm-hmm.
You normally see people that are dating in the field. And I noticed that, but let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you in your comment and your response to that. But do you feel like this could possibly end up causing a gender war? Or do you think we're already in a gender war?
Yeah, I think we're already there. And so so when you hear people talk and you bring up a valid point, usually these are not people that are married.
True.
They're normally people that are single.
True.
And so what's happening in our culture is we have a divide between independence and interdependence. That's powerful.
Okay.
We have a divide between independence and interdependence.
Mm-hmm.
So independence means that I can do it on my own.
Okay.
Right. So that's the dialogue that you're hearing. I'm an independent woman. And watch this. You only hear that in our culture.
Okay.
I've never heard an Asian woman say that. I've never heard a Hispanic woman say that. I've never heard a white woman say that. I've only heard that in our culture. Well, we talk about how that we are independent. But interdependence is completely different from independence. Independence means that I can do it on my own, which is awesome. But interdependence means that I need you and you need me. That's a completely different approach, right? So if you're independent, where do I fit in at?
True.
I'm having to force my way into this relationship because you're independent. You can change your own tire. You can pay your own bills. You can do all this stuff on your own. And that's not attractive to a man or a woman. So when I met my wife, I already had a house. She had a house. I had a beautiful house in Austin, Texas, and it was nicely decorated. And she came to visit me one day and she saw one of my walls was vacant. And she went and bought a picture. Now, I'm really good at decorating. If I had told her I got it, that would have destroyed her, and she would not have found a way into this relationship. And she felt like, you don't need me. And so we have to get to a point where we're interdependent, not just independent. Interdependence. Wow. I need you, and you need me.
So when you say independence, it's a two-sided coin. You're not just speaking to women on that. You believe that men operate in a level of independence?
Yeah. Yeah, we have to make room for our queens to be able to fit into our lives. You know, you might pay your own bills, you might do all that, but where can she fit in at? And if you don't allow her to do that, then she can't see what she can add value to you. If you're going to do all the cooking, if you're going to do everything, and you're not going to allow her to add any value or can see what she can add value, then in the back of her mind, she's thinking, well, he don't need me. No, man, my wife came in my life and she saw some things that where she could add value. I allow her to do that, even though I can do those things myself.
Wow. Wow. So
does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. So you have to allow your partner. I guess that's that becoming one. That oneness, even though you can do it.
Now we were dating at the time.
Oh.
We were dating.
Okay.
Right. But I allowed her to add value to me or to do things that I could do, but I didn't want to ostracize her or to isolate her and make her feel like she had no place in the relationship. So if she saw something avoid, I just let her do it, even though I could do those things. But if I had told her I could do it on my own, then she's like, well, you don't need me then. I'll go somewhere where I'm needed.
Where I'm needed.
Okay, Mr. Helen, Mr. Food for Thought. I'm gonna tell you that in TikTok, man. Mr.
I don't know where that came from, man, but I just thought that up.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
As I watch many men and women have conversations about relationships and dating, the younger generation, to me, for women, it seems like they're getting mixed signals from men. So when I watch a lot of conversations, I hear men say things like they want a woman that has the same thing that they have, that meets them halfway, that she's not just coming to the table with what she can get from him, but also has her own to bring to the table so they can grow and build together. But then I also hear men say things like what you just stated. I don't want a woman that that does not need me in certain areas. So to me, it's almost like, which is it? You know, do you want me to come here and meet you at the table saying, you know, I need you, or do you want me to come to the table saying I got everything I'm supposed to have? I'm independent. I'm coming to the table just to build with you. But if you were to leave, I got it. So to me, this younger generation is getting mixed signals. So could you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, that's a deep question. I'm gonna probably take it in a different direction. So if you're particularly talking about our culture, I want you to think about how the people in our culture are actually raised. So let's say a woman is being raised by a single parent household. Her mindset, based upon what her parents have taught her, or what her parent has taught her, is to be independent. Right? She's not coming to the table asking, how can I add value? She's coming to the table with, I'm independent. I can take care of myself. I don't need you. And so when you think about how we are taught, that's really where it begins. So the goal for men and women when they meet each other is to really ask one question: how can we add value to each other? Does that make sense? How can we add value to each other? But because of how we are raised, we don't look at it that way. So I posted a video on TikTok maybe 2 weeks ago, how that me and my wife, we're 100-100. And so all our money goes into one pot. And so we pay bills with one check, and then the other check, depending on what we're trying to accomplish, we either save, invest, or in this particular case, we're trying to pay off our house. So we're going to pay off the principal of our house. So we can pay our house off in, say, 5 or 6 years. Someone in the comment section said, well, whose check are you using to pay off the bills? You feel me? They asked, whose check are you using? What are you using her check for? Are you putting in more money than she's put in? I don't ever comment when people make a comment on social media, because I recognize we're operating from 2 different spaces. And so for us, it's 100-100. It's when we got married, it's our money. It's not her money and my money, it's our money. So we don't even look at it from that space. But that came from how she was nurtured. Does that make sense?
True.
That came from how she was nurtured. And so we want to show up and we want to ask ourselves, how can we add value to this particular person? So my daughter, to give you an example, my daughter brought her boyfriend home one day from the Army. My daughter she's out now, but she was in the Army, and he watches me on TikTok and Facebook, I guess. So I could tell when he walked up, he was nervous. So they came in the house and they sat down, and after about 2 hours, they got comfortable, and they were sitting on the couch. And I said, young man, I can't remember his name. I said, can I ask you a question? He said, yes, sir. I said, how is my daughter better because she's dating you?
I bet he was willing to leave. Yeah.
Then I looked at my daughter. I said, how is he better because you're dating him? And neither one of them had an answer. So if you don't look to see how you can add value to someone, it's physical. It's all physical.
It's all physical.
How can we add value to each other? Then I had to explain to him. I said, well, you can ask your mom that question. I just give a couple examples. When I met your mom, her credit score was about 610. That's about 830. When I met your mom, she had, I don't know, maybe $5,000 or $6,000 in the bank, maybe a little bit more than that. She got a whole lot more money in her savings account than that. This house you're living in, your mom's living in, it's paid for. The car your mother drive, we wrote a check for it. See, I can name you all types of things how I've added value to her since I've been into her life. So that's the intent for me, is that if you're going to come into a relationship, the question is not, watch this, not what can I take?
It's good.
But what can I give?
True.
Does that make sense? So love gives, lust takes.
True.
Yeah.
That's true.
Love is giving. So for God so loved the world that he gave.
That's right.
True.
Love gives. But when it's lust, it looks at what it can take. And then if that's been eliminated, then you leave the relationship because you were just taking. So the goal is to figure out how can I add value? Whether you because look at this. If you make 50 grand a year and he makes 50 grand a year, together, y'all make 6 figures.
True.
What can we do together to add value to each other? Not separate, but how can I add value? And I think that's what the conversation for me has to start. How can we add value to each other?
True.
I hope that answers your question.
But and also no two men are the same. It's not one size fits all.
No.
What I need and what Mr. Helen may need is 2 totally different things, but are our motives right? And what we're looking for, is it going to make you better and make me better also? I think that that's really the foundation of it. Will we make each other better? But I think sometimes
that's across the board.
Right. But I think sometimes we may come into a relationship sometimes with an ego because we've accomplished a lot and feel like we are the prize. Now we are a prize, but we're not the prize. And so I think sometimes we come in ego-wise, and we're kind of interviewing people, to bless them with the privilege of being with us and okay, prove to me why you're worthy to be with me. Now, I understand having value in yourself, but sometimes it can come off egotistical or like a narcissist. And I'm talking men and women. Yeah. We want you to believe in yourself and you've accomplished a lot, but sometimes you could really, how can I say this the right way? Value yourself so high that nobody, you're not compatible with anyone, or the ones you think you're compatible with are really not looking for you. Wow. Let me ask you this.
When you think about ego has to do with I. Right. That doesn't work in a relationship. Right? Ego has to do with my self-worth. It has to do with I. Relationships are about me and we. Right. And so if we never make that transition, when we decide to go into a relationship, we never become one. Because if it's just about me and what I've accomplished, I gave somebody the example. Matter of fact, I was thinking about this morning. I've done a lot of stuff in the leadership realm. I've written 3 books. I'm working on my 4th book. But Corey, if you share something with me, I'm open.
Right.
Right. I'm open to what you got to share with me. And we have to always place ourselves in a position where we're open to grow. Or if not, we may have accomplished a lot, but we'll grow old by ourselves. And so ego has to do with relationships have to do with me, we, and us.
Right. So you post a lot of different things on TikTok, right?
Yes, sir.
What is something that you posted that has brought back a negative response?
Almost everything I post brings back a negative response.
But I'm talking about just when you put it out there, you were shocked at the number of negative responses or feedback that you received.
I don't get a bunch of negative feedback, but every now and then I'll get one. Like the post I just told you when I posted about me and my wife monies together. That was a foreign concept to this young lady, and she didn't agree with that. Right. And I don't ever respond. So whatever, because when you post stuff on social media, you're posting for the world to see, and they have the right to respond. They have the right to agree to or to disagree. But I know that I am posting from a different place. And so therefore I don't respond, because 9 times out of 10, I don't know the person. And so even if I respond, it's not going to affect how they see it. So here's what I tell people, and I hope this don't come across the wrong way. An eagle and a pigeon share the same space, but an eagle flies at a different elevation. So the eagle's perspective and vision is completely different. It's no disrespect to the pigeon. They just have a different level of elevation. And so when I post stuff, it comes from a selfless perspective, not a selfish perspective. And so, yeah, but that's probably the biggest thing that I got was that when I posted how we put our monies together and how we pay the bills, I got one lady that's like, oh man. No, she wasn't feeling that.
Think about TikTok. Do you get more responses from men or women?
You know what the deal is, man. Think about it.
Yeah, I know. I can imagine. And that's a great segue. Me and you had talked a few days ago, and we were talking about how our heart breaks for our sisters. And you were saying that you were viewing things on TikTok, and your heart began to break for our sisters. Can you speak to that?
It goes back to what Sean was saying earlier. There's so much dialogue that if you don't know, you are extremely confused as to what men want, what women want, and some people have just given up. And so when you hear the dialogue on TikTok and on social media, it's just heartbreaking. And so one of the things that I wanted to discuss was a couple of things, because we talked about toxicity within relationships. And so Sean, one of you guys mentioned something earlier that I thought was pretty powerful. So as we come out of a relationship, we have to heal, meaning that we have to do some work. And so when I'm coaching a person or a couple, particularly a person, if I'm coaching a person that's single, and here's one of the questions I have them ask someone they're interested in dating. This is so powerful to me. Since your last breakup, what are you doing, or what have you done to heal?
Wow.
Since your last breakup, what have you done, or what are you doing to heal? And if they tell you they haven't done anything or they're not doing anything, that means that they are not willing to do the work internally. So if you're not willing to do the work on you, you are not going to do the work that it takes to have a successful relationship with me.
Wow.
But you first have to work on you. Because if you're hurt in this past relationship, you have not healed, you're just waiting for the opportunity to cut me.
Wow, that's good. And you said, you had a comment that I saw online, and you said you can't have peace with someone who is at war with themselves. Can you speak to that?
That is so deep to me. If you don't heal, you are at war with you.
True.
So let me give you an example. Let's say your last man, I'm gonna use me. Let's say my last wife or girlfriend was not faithful to me, and they would go in the room sometime and talk on the phone, and they had another relationship going on that I was oblivious to, but I caught them cheating. If I don't heal from that, every time I see my spouse talking to someone, guess what I think? She's cheating. Right? She's cheating because I haven't properly healed. Even though she's never done anything to make me feel that way, I'm going to think she's cheating. Or in this particular instance, with that quote that I gave you, let's say someone came from a relationship that was abusive, where they fought each other, right? Mm-hmm. That's how he or she sees love. Then you get into another relationship, and this person is not like that. But you are constantly at war with yourself. So you want to fight with this person, even though this person don't want to fight with you because you have not properly healed. And so although I'm coming with peace, you don't understand peace. You only understand war. And I can't help you with that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. That's real good. Yeah. I got a question though that I want to double back to. You mentioned that our culture is the only one that's having these discussions.
No, why? Not the only one.
Mm-hmm. Well, the only in my observance, the only culture that is kind of fighting with what we both deserve and what we both are supposed to
look like in a relationship.
To look like in a relationship. Yeah. Why do you think that this topic is so big right now among the Black community? Why are we so far apart? Men and women, of course, we know that we think differently, we see things differently, but we've been that way since we've been on this earth. So why is it so big now? Even if you look back, even in the 60s, and look at our history, we've gone through a lot, but relationships where if anybody stood for Black men, it was Black women. If anybody stood for Black women, it was Black men. But now it seems like we are so far away from each other. Why do you think in our culture we're fighting so much about the topic of what each one deserves in a relationship, what a marriage looks like? We're fighting so hard against traditional roles. I'm not saying you should go with traditional roles because there's some things that we don't follow. But why are we fighting now so hard to be to not be on the same page?
That's a really good question. I don't know how old you guys are. I'm pretty old. I'm 57. When I was growing up in my neighborhood, do you know I don't know one divorced family? Not one. Every family was a dual household family, unless the mother's husband passed or, something like that happened. But for the most part, they were all dual parent households. And even back then, if the father passed, it was about a 95% chance that mother never married again because she didn't want to put other people over her kids. That was when I was, growing up. I'm 57 now. Well, look at our culture now. In the African American community, we have like the highest number of single parent households.
Right.
So you got single parents raising it, and they're doing the best they can to raise our daughters and to raise our men. And to me, that's what creates a great divide, because they're going to teach and instill in them the things that are important to them at that level and what they're going through at that particular time. But the biggest issue in our culture, Sean, is the divide between the single parent households, or the issue with the single parent household and a dual parent household. So just statistically, in every area you can imagine, if a kid is raised in a dual parent household, it's no comparison. Not saying that somebody can't be successful in a single parent household, but the numbers don't even compare when you raise a kid in a dual parent household. To me, that's where the issue starts at. That's why these topics are so important, to where we got to start valuing marriage. We got to make sure that we're going into marriage right. We got to make sure that we're mentoring our kids so that we're not having these kids all split up. And by the time they're 18 years old, they've had 4 or 5 baby daddies. They've had 4 or 5 baby mamas, and they've experienced all this trauma that they take into their adulthood. And it's just a vicious cycle. But that's where the divide comes in there. Is the dual parent household is almost done away with.
True.
In the Black community.
And I think you have to look at those that are presenting their argument and their age. And truth be told, what are their values? Because a lot of the questions that they are asking or they're trying to work through, a lot of it is in scripture. So what we also have, we have men and women trying to figure out another way other than God's way. And we're trying to figure out how to make it, we're trying to redefine what marriage is. redefine how we should treat each other. So I think that a lot of that is really leading to the argument. Now, if we do it the way God says it don't matter your opinion nor my opinion. Truth be told, this is what he says that I should be to you and you should be to me. Clear cut. So a lot of things God, somebody called. So a lot of things have already been discussed and resolved in scripture, because God knew that we would have the I syndrome, or we'll call the itis, where I want it my way, you want it your way. And he said, look, this is what we're going to do. Husbands, love your wife as Christ has loved the church. See, he already had all that figured out. But I believe that there's a generation that may have different values than our generation. So what they're saying is, look, we're going to work together and talk our stuff out. And truth be told, it doesn't seem to be working well for them. What, one thing that saddens me, and I want to hear your opinion as a man, is that some women feel that they have to get their surgery on their face, plastic surgery, get their chest done, get their breasts done, hips done. They think they have to do all of those things to attract a husband. What's your thoughts on that?
I did a video on that. Actually, it's my most watched video on TikTok. And I said the exact same things you said. Those things will attract a man, but they will not keep a man.
True.
And so we look at social media and we look at all these reality shows, and we think we need to emulate that stuff, right? True. We need to get, our lips done, our breasts done, our butts done. True. And we're spending millions of dollars on cosmetic surgery.
True.
But what we're not doing is we're not working on our heart.
True.
And to me, that's where it starts. So your butt and your breasts and a man's chest and his color of his eyes might attract a woman, and that may attract a man.
True.
But that's not what's going to keep them. And I think I did a video on this a couple of days ago. I think there are three things when we talk about relationship that we need to consider. True. So I said the first one. I said number one is, what have we done to heal since our last relationship? What are we doing to work on us? And number two, you mentioned this earlier. What are our values?
Right. Right.
Now,
right.
Values are, watch this definition. I gave this definition of values. Values are guiding principles that are non-compromising.
Right.
Guiding principles that are non-compromising, mean they are non-negotiable. Now, if you don't have values, you're going to succumb to someone else's values, right?
Wow.
And so I'll give you an example. So before I met my wife, I went out on a date with this young lady. Went out on a couple of dates with different people. And me and this young lady was out on a date, and I don't know what I asked her, but she just started using explicits. And I don't think there's nothing wrong with cussing. That's what you want to do. And she was just cussing up a storm. And we finished our meal. And I walked her back to her car, and I dropped off at her house. And I told her, thank you so much for going out with me and being seen with me in public. I really appreciate it. And then I left and went home, and I never called her again. That was my first date and my last date with that young lady. Now, why is that? Well, Sean, one of my values is we must respect each other.
Wow.
And if you use that type of language with me on our first date, that told me that you will cuss me out.
Wow.
Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. But when you don't have defined values and someone does something like that, you make a bed for it. She's had a bad day. She probably had a long day. And that may be so, right? That may be so. But you make an excuse for their behavior when you don't have values. Because values they're non-compromising.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
I'm just not going to compromise my values to be in a relationship because I love me. And you might not love me, but I love me. And so because I love me, I'm going to let you go somewhere else to let somebody else love you the way you need to be loved. But we see in my circle, we don't talk to each other like that. I don't use that type of language towards people. I don't talk to people that way. So I never called her.
True.
That's
but when
good.
you don't have values, go ahead, Sean.
No. Finish that thought.
But you don't have values, you accept anything that's bestowed upon you because you want to be in a relationship so bad, you just overlook it. Then I'll give you one last example. So when I met my wife, I knew we talked on the phone for about, actually we met online, and we talked on the phone for 90 days before we met. And when I met her, I was blown away because I didn't think because her picture online didn't look as good. Her picture online, she looks better in person than she did online. I'm like, oh my goodness, this girl is beautiful. And so we talked about 90 days before we met. But she was going through a divorce. So about 8 months into our relationship, I called her one day. She lived in Killeen, Texas. I lived in Austin, Texas. And I said, what are you doing? And she said, no, that wasn't it. Let me back up a little bit. No, let me back up. That's a different story. So I was talking to her on the phone. And I said, I think you're just using me. I think I'm just a rebound guy. That's a different story I was telling you earlier. I said, I think I'm just a rebound guy. Oh, man, that sister got mad. My wife's from New York. When I told that sister that I was a rebound guy, she just started using all type of language she had never used before.
Oh, wow.
And I just looked at my phone and I hung my phone up. Within about 15 seconds, my phone rang. I said, hello? She said, why you hanging up now? Why you hanging the phone up in my face? Now, keep in mind, she came from a toxic relationship where that was normal. They fought each other and they did all kinds of stuff to each other, right? That was her norm. That wasn't my norm. Mm-hmm. So she called me back. And I liked her at this point. I had failed for her. She called me back and I said, she said, why you hanging the phone up in my face? I said, do you like me? She said, yeah, I like you a lot. I said, if you ever talk to me that way again, lose my phone number and don't ever call me. That was 14 years ago.
Wow.
We've never had that happen again.
Wow. Wow.
Now, my point is, one of my values is, I don't care how mad we get at each other, we still have to respect each other.
True.
But the problem is, Sean, none of us, I can say none of us, most people have not defined their values.
That's right.
Right.
So when you look at social media and you ask a young lady, particularly ladies or men, it don't matter. If you ask a young lady, what is she looking for in a man? 90% of the time, the first thing come out of her mouth is something superficial. Mm-hmm. Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
61, he got to have a job, his own house, his own car. Mm-hmm. I said, well, that's all good. Can I ask you a question? And she says, yes. Why do people divorce people? Do you know anybody that's divorced? Are you divorced? They say, yeah. Why do people divorce people? And all the things she's looking for in a man are none of the reasons why somebody divorced somebody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good. That's real good.
So my question for you, young lady, would be this, or young man, would be this. If none of the reasons that you're looking for in your particular spouse that you're trying to attract are the reasons why you would get divorced from someone, shouldn't you be looking at the reason why you would divorce someone?
Wow. That's good.
Well, what do you mean? Well, I think there are 4 things we should look for in people. They say, what is that? I call them the 4 C's. Character, competence, chemistry, coachability. Character. Is this person competent? Can we have an intelligent conversation? Chemistry. How well does this person get along with me? How well does this person get along with others? And coachable. What I mean by coachable is this. If you bring something to Richard's attention, do I deflect? Or can I accept responsibility and be accountable? If those 4 things are lined up, everything else will take care of itself. But the reason people divorce people is usually it's a character issue. He hid money from me that I didn't know anything about. He was cheating on me. All those are character issues. Wow. Right? But we look for superficial things in men. So therefore, women, this particular women, because that's what I talk to a lot, they'll tell me there aren't any good men. Well, there are good men. I'm one of them. Mm-hmm. You're talking to a good man. But the problem is you don't know what a good man looks like.
Wow.
You think a good man has to be 6'1" with a 6-pack and, got a pretty smile, and that don't make him a good man. That just makes him a good looking man. But that may not make him a good man or a good woman. What are you looking for in a woman? Character, competence, chemistry, and coachability. And I think everything else falls in line if we begin to know what we're looking for. So I think the first thing we have to examine is, what am I doing to work on myself after my last relationship? Number two is, what are my values? And values are guiding principles that are non-compromising. And what is it that I'm looking for in the person I want to date and potentially marry, which is character. For me, it's character, competence, chemistry, and it's coachability. But we keep looking for people with a six-pack. He has to make six figures, or she has to make six figures. She has to be a 36, 24, 36. We're going to be single for the rest of our life.
Wow.
But those are all superficial qualities.
Who gets to define what a good man is or a good woman is?
I think it's personally individual.
Do women get to define what a good woman is? Or do men get to define what a good woman is? Or vice versa? Who gets to define what's a good man and a good woman?
Well, I can think I'm a good man, but the woman may not think that.
True.
Right? The woman may not think that I'm a good man. And a woman could be a good woman, and I may not think she's a good woman. So individually, you must know that you are a good man or a good woman. But then if you say you're a good man or a good woman, then how do you define that?
True.
So you begin to tell me how much money you make, that doesn't make you a good man or a good woman. Right? You begin to tell me the kind of car you drive, that doesn't make you a good man or a good woman. To me, it boils down to character, the character of the person, the competence of the person, the chemistry of the person, how well that person gets along with me and other people, and is that person coachable? Can you go to that person and make a correction out of love? And so for me, that's where it starts. So it's individual and personal, because I think I'm a good man, but somebody else may not think that.
I think it goes back to something else that you said, back to our values too. If I value you as a good leader, but we don't have a lot of money, but you lead us well with the little bit that we have, you're a good man in my eyes.
Yeah.
So it goes back to what we really value. And then when we talk about our value system, the things that we value compared to the person that we're dating and what they value, we'll really begin to see if the relationship is even worth pursuing. Because if your value system is so far off from what I value, we're really wasting time. But if they're starting to match up in certain areas, then we can kind of see, well, let's take this a little bit further. And then we can also kind of step back, because sometimes when you have certain values, people can think that you're looking down on them.
Right.
But it don't necessarily have to be that I'm looking down on you. These are just the things that I value. I heard somebody say that my standards for myself are not a judgment on you. It's just the thing that I'm called to live to. So I think that when we come into a relationship, we meet somebody, if we start out with what we really value, and that person starts out with what our value systems really are, we can decide if the relationship is even worth pursuing.
True. But you know what? 9 times
out of 10, these are all. I think we should be done right now. Sean, that was so good.
It is good. But you know good. What? That's when you're 35, 40, 45, 50, this is the way you think. Yeah. 18, 19, 20, 21, you're not thinking about value. Mm-hmm. You're just not thinking. I'm not saying everybody, but
right.
How many 20-year-olds are you thinking that are actually single? Because sometimes you're too young to know what you don't know. You know, and so once you get in it, you learn as you get down the road. And that's why when you were talking about a household, having a parent, have a mother, I think that we have to really begin to shape the younger generation, basically saying, this is what you look for. You need to have values, or you two are not compatible. These are the questions you should ask her. These are the questions that you should be able to answer. So I think that, you know, as we get older, we have a better understanding, better foresight on it. But you know, when I think back of where I was 20, 25, I mean, everything that I was looking for in a relationship was for all the wrong reasons.
But that's good, because that shows the pros and the cons of these conversations that they're having.
Okay.
Because when I was in my 20s, I wasn't looking to sit and have conversations with other people about relationships. These young people are.
True.
And so if we can continue, like you said, we can start trying to shape them, because most of us, we learned what we're supposed to be looking for in a man from our homes. What we heard our auntie say, don't never mess with no man without no money. Never mess with no man without a car. We learned that stuff as young ladies.
Yeah.
Don't never let him take you anywhere and you have to pay. Don't. All these things are rules that we begin to take in as young women and we begin to live by. But we wasn't having conversations like these young people are.
Well, but this is the difference. The conversations have always been had, but men have never participated.
But do you think that men were having their own conversations?
No.
Just not.
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Okay.
I believe in that men are more vocal now than ever.
Yeah.
Not even right or wrong, but they're more vocal. Women were
About
always,
their true feelings.
about their true feelings or wants, needs,
Yeah.
whether we agree or disagree. For so long, men never really had a platform or an outlet. Neither were they looking for one.
Mhm.
And I think within the last maybe 5 to 10 years, men have begin to join the panel, and so now we're seeing the man's side, the woman's side. Men are more vocal now than ever before. Now, are all of them correct? No, I'm not saying that, but they're more vocal now than ever before. When you know, I think that when Kevin Samuels came out, that was kind of the birth of it. Now, I didn't agree with everything that he said, but I had never heard someone on a public platform speak from a man's point of view and say some hard things that men knew were truth, but because they were considerate of women's feelings, they wouldn't tell them. And I think that he gave some men the courage to kind of come out and say, okay, let's have dialogue. And hopefully we don't have a gender war, but we will be able to take things from these dialogue and we can get some healthy marriages up out of it. And you were talking about healing. And if someone is listening tonight and they need healing, what would you say the first step to healing is?
The first step of healing is this. In every relationship that we come out of, there's a certain degree of accountability that we have to own. It might be 5%, it might be 10%, it might be 100%. I don't know. But nobody escapes a relationship unscathed. So the first step of healing is, watch this. This is so powerful. And for the people that's listening, I really want you to consider this. It does me no good to say, oh yeah, my last marriage, I wasn't perfect. That's not accountability. That's not true accountability. True accountability is, man, in my last marriage, man, I wasn't honest. I was not honest. I hid money. I was not faithful. You got to own whatever it is. You got to own it or you can't heal. So that's the first step of healing, is to own my part in the demise of the relationship. Then the second part is, whether it be through books, whether it be through mentors, we have to get some counseling. Counseling sometimes has a negative connotation in our culture, but it's necessary because people that are not you are going to see things in you that you don't see in yourself. That's going to help you heal and grow. And so we got to be able to reach out to coaches, mentors, or counselors to help us through that journey so that we don't show up in the next relationship the same way we left the last relationship. But that's where it starts.
That's good.
That's good. That's good. Let me ask you this. Now, some people say that women should have a list, women shouldn't have a list, and what they're looking for in a mate or a spouse. What's your opinion on that?
I think everybody should know what they're looking for, because if you don't know what you're looking for, when it shows up, you won't know that it's present. And so, but your list begins with your values. So this goes back to what you said earlier, Sean. What I am looking for in a mate is someone whose values are congruent with my values. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
That's what I'm looking for in a mate, is someone whose values are congruent or in line with my values. So I'll give you a perfect example. I'm pretty transparent. And if I want to know something, I just ask. And I don't mean to be rude, but I just ask. So on the very first date me and my wife had, we talked for 90 days. And we were just talking. I asked her 2 questions. For some reason, I can't remember the second question that I asked her. But after we got to know each other a little bit on the first date, and she'd been married for 20 years. And I said, can I ask you a question? She said, sure. I said, the whole time you was married, were you faithful to your husband?
Oh, wow.
And emphatically, she said yes. Now, why did I ask that? Because being faithful is important to me. That's a value of mine.
True.
So if you can't remain faithful, then we're probably not congruent.
True.
Right? But she answered the question emphatically that, yeah, I was faithful to my husband the whole time we was married. So that's awesome. So the goal is to find someone whose values, whatever your values are, that are in line with your values. Not that they have a six-pack, not that he makes 6 figures a year, which is only, that argument kills me because a very small percentage of people make 6 figures. So if you're looking for a man that made 6 figures, you might be looking a long time because it's a very small percentage of people that make, 6 figures or, 200-300 grand a year. Most people don't make that kind of money. It's a very small segment of this culture that makes that kind of money. But you're looking at their values as lined up with your values. That's what you're looking for in the bank. That should be your list.
Wow.
Not something superficial, but values.
Right. So we got.
Does that make sense, Sean? You're a female. Does that make sense?
It makes good sense.
Yes. What are your values? Right.
Yeah, it really does makes good sense. Knowing what to identify when dating someone. I saw one of your posts on that. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? And I know we kind of touched it.
Say it again now.
Knowing what to identify when dating. And then one of you had has he altered his schedule? I thought that was
Ooh, that's powerful.
I can tell your stuff is good to you.
Yeah, it's powerful, man. Yeah, Paul said you teach others, you teach yourself. So yeah, that's
that before. Sometimes your stuff is good to you.
Yeah. Look, if it don't get you excited, it won't get nobody else excited.
That's right. Your stuff should be good to you.
Yeah, man, that's just so powerful to me. Say that last statement again.
Does he alter his schedule? I thought that was powerful. You were talking to our sisters, about when they're dating someone that alters their schedule, and if they don't alter their schedule, it says a lot about how they feel about them while they're going through the dating phase.
I'm gonna say 2 things about that. Number 1, if that man is into you, watch this. He alters his schedule without you asking.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I met my wife, after our first conversation, Corey, I knew she was my wife.
Wow. Wait a minute. Now you got to park there.
Yeah.
Why? Because she lined up with your values.
Yeah.
Was it something your spirit saying it to you? What?
Both.
What?
My spirit told me that's my spouse, and our values were congruent. And I had no intention on getting married. I was done with marriage. But when I met her, I said, God, if you help her heal, I said, that's my spouse. I said, that's my spouse. And so at the time when I met my wife, I was dating other people. But you know what I did when I met her? I cut it all off.
Wow.
She never asked me to. She lived in a whole other town. She had no idea what I could have been doing. Man, I dropped them folks like a hot potato. I changed my schedule so we could spend more time together. Right? So if that person is into you, watch this, they're going to make time for you. If they're not into you, they're going to make an excuse as to why they can't spend time with you.
Wow.
So that person is going to alter their schedule to make sure you guys can spend some time together. If their schedule is not being altered so y'all can spend more time together, they're not into you. Wow. And you want to find that out early so that you don't get invested emotionally.
Wow.
Right? Wow. That's why your values got to be congruent. Your values got to line up so that you can see stuff in the very beginning and go, oh, that's a red flag. Another red flag. Woman dates a man, he has 2 kids. And she goes, where your kids live? And so they live here in Austin. He said, that's awesome. What's their name? One of them name's Paul and one of them name's Sean. Well, last time you seen them? Well, I hadn't seen them in 6 months. Well,
flag on the play.
Well, let me ask you a question. What's preventing you from seeing them? Or I wait for them to call me. That's a character issue for me.
Yeah.
How do you have kids? How do you plant a seed and don't have that seed grow and nourish?
True.
Now, if there's something preventing you from seeing your kids, let's talk about that. But if you made a conscious effort not to spend time with your kids, that might be a red flag, particularly if I'm a female and I got kids. How you gonna spend time with my kids and you don't spend time with your own kids?
True.
That might be a red flag.
True.
And so when I would meet, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
but often I see, and men do it, but often I see sisters that despite the red flags, they feel that they can fix a man.
Mm-hmm.
I see this a lot in my Christian sisters. Now I see men trying to shape women to be what they want them to be also. So I want to be fair about that. But sometimes, even though we see the red flags, and this is what breaks my heart with my sisters, because as they come, and they and I give them advice as a brother, there's 4 or 5 red flags, but you can see that the person believes in their heart that with some work and some guidance and some help and some support from me, this individual could turn out to be something, that I desire them to be.
Can I jump in right before you answer that? Mm-hmm. Speaking from, because I've talked to some of my sisters that are facing that. And I think that one of the main reasons why they ignore the red flags is because, one, the older they get, the chances of them finding who they think they're supposed to be with slims to some single women.
Right.
And I think that they feel that my chances of trying to deal with this red flag issue and get him right on the right track is better than me waiting to find a whole nother person that may not have these red flags. Mm-hmm. So let me just continue, even though I see the red flags, let's try to fix that here or there, or maybe in time he'll straighten that red flag out. But my chances of fixing these issues with this person that I'm with are far beyond me starting over and waiting for another guy to come along, especially as I get older. So a lot of times that's one of the main reasons why women ignore red flags, because I'll just try to fix it, or we'll try to deal with it, but I don't think that I should start over, especially not at this age.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's good. Yeah, that's real good. Go ahead, Corey.
I mean, she said it all. I mean, that's why I like these conversations, because a lot of things as men, we just don't know. We think we know, but we just don't know. And and I believe that some of us as men, our heart is in the right place.
I think that you hit on that on the last thing that we posted. A lot of times we could get the truth of to a lot of these conversations if women would talk to women about our issues, and if men would talk to men about their issues, and then we come together and have healthy dialogue and stop trying to tell the other, stop trying to tell women what women, how men feel. How did you word it? Men, a lot of times women try to tell men how men feel about things. No, should feel about things, when we should let a man tell us how he feels. True. Instead of saying, no, this is how a man feels. This is how a man wants it. And vice versa. So a lot of times I think that we're going around in circles because we really don't know exactly how the other one feels about certain things.
True, we don't. And I think for so long that women talk to other women concerning men and what men want. And I think now men are being more vocal and saying, this is what I really need. This is what I really want. And so you were thinking that it was in your hips. You thinking it was in your chest. Then a man will come along and say, just because I play with you don't mean I'll stay with you. That's not what I'm trying to get home to my mother. And so I think, like what I was saying, in these conversations, you can find nuggets. One thing I'll give to this generation, they're very fearless. They're very fearless, not always as considerate as they should be when having these discussions. But I believe that some good can come out of some of them. But I think for so long, you only had platforms, your Oprah Winfrey platforms, where women were speaking to other women about men, what they like, how they think, how they work. And then we've gotten to a place now where men say, hold on, let me tell you what men are looking for. Like one time, me and you have a conversation and we were talking about marriage. And I said, men in their 20s don't normally sit around talking about marriage. We just don't. It's just not the topic. In our 20s, we try to run far away from marriage as possible. Would you agree with that, Mr. Helen? Do you believe that in younger age that men sit in circles in your time growing up, that y'all sit around and talk about, man, you know what? I want to be married one day, man. And I want to, you know, my wife to be this and that.
It kind of goes back to what you've experienced.
True.
So if you grew up in a 2-parent household and you grew up with some good parents, your experience is going to be different.
Yeah.
You're right.
If you grew up in a single-parent household, you're not growing up thinking about marriage.
Right.
You find marriage later on in life. But yeah, it just depends on the household you grew up in. So my household wasn't talking about no marriage, so I knew nothing about no marriage. But Sean, I want to go back. I want to circle back to something you said, and I'm going to give you an example. I always wanted daughters. When I met my wife, her daughters were 17 and 18, so they were basically grown, so I didn't get a chance to influence them. And here's the reason that I wanted a daughter. Sean, you might can correct me, or you can correct me if I'm wrong. If I had to put a number on it, I'd be willing to bet you that probably, no matter how they look, they can be beautiful. Probably 60 or 70% of women grow up with low self-esteem.
I don't know the percentage, but I can see where women, young girls,
a lot of women grow up with low. Yeah. So I make it a point. I'm in Home Depot or whatever. I'll go up to one of my young. I'm just from the people that I talk to. Like out of all the women I talk to on a daily basis, most of them have suffered or do suffer with some degree of low self-esteem. And so I go up to my sister in Home Depot and I say, "Good morning, Queen." And they look shy. And I said, "Do you know you're beautiful?" And you know that they all tell me, nobody's really told me that. That's one of the first times they've heard that, right? Their daddy is not telling them that they're beautiful. And so I experienced that as a young man. I grew up with severe low self-esteem, right? I told you guys my story, but when I was in high school, we had to take class pictures. And I hid in the bathroom for 2 hours because I didn't want my picture in the class yearbook because I didn't want to be ridiculed. I grew up with real low self-esteem. So I kept looking for things outside of me to fill that void. And the only thing that can fill that void, if you're a religious person or you're a Christian person, is really God.
True.
But I was searching for sex. I didn't never do drugs or alcohol, but I was trying to use sex and being married as a means to fill the void how I felt about me.
Wow.
So one day I met this young lady when I got back from Iraq in 2004. We met online. She was a very attractive young lady. And she lived in Houston, Texas. And she came to visit me one day. And we're riding down the road. And her brother co-signed for her a BMW. I want you to watch this. He co-signed for her a BMW. I think her car note was about $650 a month. But she wasn't paying the car note. And so he worked for the sheriff department. So the people were calling him at the sheriff department about the car. And so his boss got onto him about that. So he called her to ask her when she's going to pay the car note. She cursed her brother out.
Wow.
She called him a faggot. She cursed their brother out. Sean, do you know about 2 months later, I married that young lady? Now I know what you're thinking. I'm a fool. But my point, Sean, is this, going back to what you said earlier. If I don't love me, and if I don't have defined values, I'm going to make an excuse for it. And I'm just going to accept anything. So the first question I ask myself is that we have to ask ourselves is, you know, whether you're 40, whether you're 50, whether you're 60, whether you're 70, and you're looking at dating, you think that window is closing. Before you look at whether or not that window is closed or not, my question to you would be this. Do you love you?
True. True.
Do you love you? Because if you don't love you, whether you're 25, 35, 45, 50, no matter what age you're in, you're going to make an excuse for someone's behavior. And you're going to accept things that you should not be accepting. And you might get married, but the relationship will only last about a year or two. Because you've accepted things you should not have accepted. And over a period of time, you get frustrated with it. And then you end up filing for divorce. 7% of women file for divorce versus men. Men only file for 30% of divorces. 7% of all divorces in America filed by women.
Yeah.
Wow.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So the first question I would ask is, do I love me? And if I'm a believer, here's what I tell my clients. If I'm a believer, and there are 8 billion people in the world, and I'm telling myself that God don't have one man for me. No, man, I don't believe that. No, it's 8 billion people in the world. You don't think God got one man for you? Just one? And so I want to trust that. So the first question is not will we accept him, but do we love us?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Do we love me? Because when you don't, you just accept anything.
Wow, that's awesome. I told you I wasn't gonna hold you longer than an hour because I know we could go on and on. But how would somebody contact you for counseling?
Richard Helen Pathways, REHpathways.com. That's REHpathways.com. I'm on every social media platform. But that's my number. If you look on Facebook, my number's on Facebook, my email address on Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn. I'm living everywhere, man. So if I can be of value to someone, just don't hesitate to reach out.
How can we find your books? Because
It's on Amazon. So Richard Helen, yeah, it's on Amazon.com. So if you go to Amazon, every book I've ever written is on Amazon. And so some pretty good stuff in there, some pretty good content in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get I got one. I'm gonna go and get the other one myself. You say you're working on your third book?
No, my fourth book. It's called yeah, and it's tough for me to write too, man. It's called Don't Raise Your Children, Lead Them. Yeah. Everybody raises their kids, but where you lead them to. And so the whole premise of the book is whether you be in ministry, whether you be, no matter what it is that you're doing, my question for you is where are you taking it?
Wow.
And so you put things in place for your kids when they're younger, so that when they're people are like, what age should your kids leave? Well, that depends on how you raise them. My kid was ready to leave home at 18. You know, so it depends on what you put into them when they're little. And so you put things in place today that's going to benefit them tomorrow. So I just give you one quick example. My son turned 16. I couldn't wait for him to drive because he was in band. So we was being tossed all over the place, you know, because band is not over at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on Fridays and Saturdays. And we had to go pick him up. And oh man, it was just tiring. So I couldn't wait for him to drive. But I did 2 things that was pretty significant. I bought him a 1998 Honda Accord. Now, I could have bought him whatever I wanted, but I got him a 1998 Honda Accord, which was intentional. And number 2, he had a little summer job. He wasn't making much money, but he had to give me $300. The car only cost $2,800. He had to give me $300 on the car. So now he's invested. And then number 3, before I let him drive, he had to learn how to change the oil, change the tires, check the transmission fluid, listen for noises, keep it clean. He had to learn all of that before I gave him the keys to the car. Then every Saturday he had to clean the car, and I checked behind him. And if something was low, the transmission fluid was low, the oil was low, or something was not right, I took his keys. What are you doing? Because one day he's not going to be with me.
True.
He needs to know how to do those things.
True.
Right? So you put things in place today that's going to benefit him tomorrow, benefit them tomorrow. And so that's what we did with our kid. We just put when he graduated high school, man, he was probably 15 years ahead of his peers for us mentally.
Right.
Right. Because we put so many things in place. So he knew about the stock market. He knew how to invest. He knew about relationships. He knew about sales. He knew about leadership. He was really sharp. So he's left home now. He's been home. He's in the Air Force. He's been gone for 11 years. He's never called to ask me for one dime. His first car, he bought it for $3,000 or $4,000 under value. He paid it off in 2 years. He's debt free. He should graduate next year with his bachelor's degree. He's super. I'm not saying that he's my son, but he's super sharp. You know, but all that is just leadership, man. Just, you know, what are we doing to help put them in a position, a place, so that tomorrow they'll be better than what they were today? And so that's what the book is really about, man. Putting things in place today, so when they get out on their own, they can just thrive, man. Not just raising them. Raising them consists of food, water, clothes, and shelter. That's what we're supposed to do. But what else am I teaching him so that he can be successful?
True. Man, that's good. We're going to definitely have you back once the book is finished so you can come and just share with us.
Does that make sense?
Makes real good sense. We want to thank you for everything that you've shared with us, shared with our viewers, and it's really been a blessing. If you guys haven't already went and follow Mr. Richard Helen, please go on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and follow him. I promise it will bless your soul. So until the next time, this has been Let's Grow Together. I'm Prophet Corey.
And I'm Sean.
And we love you guys.
Appreciate you guys, man.